Recording in progress.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Public Safety Committee meeting for this Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. Kelly, can we have roll call, please? Here.
Chairman Lockmiller.
Here again.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Plufka is absent.
Any changes to the agenda? If not, can we approve by acclamation? So we shall. Moving on to citizen comment. Kelly, anybody out there?
Karen Smith has her hand raised.
Okay.
Karen, go ahead and talk.
Yeah, okay. It's Karen Smith. I live on Harrison. So two things. I know at the last meeting, it was discussed that they put on the monitors to monitor the traffic on High School and Harrison. I can't see them, so I'm assuming there's some very kind of invisible kind of device that you have out there. But I know that they had commented that High School might have some increased traffic that might need to be looked at, but you weren't seeing a lot of traffic on Harrison. So Harrison really hasn't or doesn't typically have a lot of traffic. What our concern is on Harrison is kind of the cut through, and we do have, people talk about that we do, and again, you can sit out there and, I think David Plufka once said, a lot of times we think we have problems, we can sit out there and you can watch it happen, but it really doesn't register in the data. And so, all of our neighbors, we see people turn in at Brentwood and then go all the way through and don't turn down any of the side streets or go into the homes, and then they go on to High School. So we do have a lot of cut through, which has been greatly reduced because of COVID. So I don't know if we will see some different numbers as things come by, but I just wanted to clarify that traffic isn't really the problem on Harrison. It's more the cut through. And then secondly, my second comment is just noticed this today, but we do have school construction taking place now. And there were multiple 18-wheelers going up and down our street today. And I don't know if Harrison is supposed to be used for construction. And if it is, would like to understand kind of what kinds of like the cleaning service we would have, and kind of if there would be any sort of mitigation for that construction traffic. So like with those 18-wheelers, it was kind of clogging our street today. So I don't know if there's any safety features that need to be looked at around that too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Anybody else?
No, that's it.
Paula, is there, as far as traffic, construction traffic cutting through there, is there anything we can do, notify the school board or no construction signs?
Yeah. Dan, we have a relationship with Navigate Building Solutions, so we can talk to them. And we also know the school district's facilities manager, Andy Harnett, exactly. So we can communicate this to them.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, Bola, we'll move on to you, the city administrator report. You have something, the American Rescue Plan Act.
So we have been notified that the city will be receiving between 1.4 million and 1.7 million grant funds to do a number of different things. There are different categories of how those funds can be spent, and the different department directors have provided you, and that's in your packet, ideas for projects, and we will be meeting the requirement that requires that we show the loss in revenue over 2019. I believe total amount so far is between 1.3, 1.4 that we're showing in terms of loss of revenue for all city funds, so general fund, stormwater, capital, sewer lateral, parks and stormwater funds. So in addition to that, there are specific things that we can spend the money on. We can use it to provide premium pay for first responders. And from what I now understand, that would also include public works personnel. And it can also be spent on stormwater projects, infrastructure projects. It cannot be used to add personnel. So we have created that list for you to review. We first presented it at Ways and Means Committee, and Ways and Means Committee directed us to present this at the different committees, Public Works, Public Safety, get your input as well, and even take it to your ward meetings, get the input of the residents, then come back with the list and then present that back to Ways and Means. So this is an opportunity for Public Safety Committee to brainstorm, think through what some of the projects that you have, that you want us to put on the list and send back to Ways and Means, or if you need clarification from the different departments that are here, Police, Fire, Public Works, we can do that as well.
Thank you, Alderwoman Sims, for allowing us to chime in.
For
on-
sharing the labor, yeah, anytime.
Well, why don't we do that? Because under the committee, we've got the fire, police, and Public Works. And I know Public Works, we kind of discussed a little bit at Public Works. But we've got a list here, and I guess starting with fire, Chief Cottrell, you've got some items listed here. I don't know if any of them are a priority for you, or?
So, yes, certainly. One item that is not part of a capital improvement plan moving forward is the Knox box upgrade program. That has become a priority due to the change in the community, especially with the schools and the construction projects going on at the schools. So Knox is a proprietary system that we've used for years here in Brentwood. We require that on all new commercial occupancies. So with the upgrades to the Knox system, they have availability for both police and fire to share this access. We're the only ones that have that access, and we can have it in all of their buildings right now because of their construction project that's ongoing. So moving that to the top of the list it's not included in our 5-year capital improvement plan. It certainly is going to be, if it's not approved as part of this project, we need to tackle this in coming budget years.
Is that also accessible to other municipalities or mutual aid?
Yes, so that's part of the system upgrade. Thank you. That's a great question. So we are able to share a code, for lack of a better term. So if at the Drury Inn, for example, we have a fire alarm and we're not the first ones there for a variety of reasons, the first in fire truck would have access if they have this electronic system, which Clayton and Maplewood currently do, to access our buildings if they arrive first. So there's a sharing piece to that. Yes.
I was under the impression that residents could borrow a Knox box for several months.
Correct.
But it sounds like, from what you're saying, there's a more permanent kind now.
So that system, I would call our legacy Knox box system. So we would carry the legacy key, an actual key for a locking cylinder, just like it is today. And then all new buildings will have the electronic key. And then we would have the ability to change those cylinders on certain target hazards, high rises, commercial occupancies that we frequent. So we would still maintain that program that you just asked about.
Thank you.
What would be the cost of the upgrade you're talking about here?
We're right at $40,000,
Oh,
but
okay.
that covers police and fire.
Oh,
Yes.
All right, well,
It's not a cheap system. It's a very effective, secure system.
top of our list, I guess, for fire.
Is that fair to say, like, all of these things that appear on this memo, like, would that be your number one?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The UTV for access on the trails is going to be a priority, especially when Brentwood Bound is complete. We have a little bit of time with that, and we look to continue to pursue that. We just have a little bit more time on that item.
I would, especially if Alderman Wiggy gets hold of this, be looking at electric and gas. Look, I know he's going to
I was going to ask
want
that
to be
too.
looking at
So
at an
we-
electric vehicle,
so
powered vehicle.
we did research electric powered vehicle for that, and it cannot carry the load capacity for the current models that are available. And there's a new Polaris rolling out later this year. It cannot carry the weight capacity that we need it to.
Need
And
to get
at the
Ford
speed.
150 truck.
Yeah. I don't know the cost of that.
And then you've got turnout gear. I know that's in your capital plan going forward.
So the turnout gear is an actual building project. It's not the gear itself. It's to create a clean gear storage area in our station. So to remove the turnout gear from the apparatus bays, put it into a ventilated room so that if it's off-gassing after a call, all of those toxins are exhausted out of the building. And we would have an extractor to clean that gear physically in our station. So that's a building project that we already had in our 22 and 23 capital improvement plan. The remaining item, the emergency medical equipment and technical rescue equipment, there is one piece of that that is rearing its head at us right now, and that's another heart monitor. And it's for our reserve ambulance, which in 2020 was staffed frequently, where we had both ambulances in service. So we need, that heart monitor is at its end of life, usable life, so we need to replace that.
Sounds like a second priority.
Correct.
I was curious if we have the type of equipment, I see these on these shows where it administers CPR automatically by
Yes.
itself when
Yes.
you're transporting?
Yes.
Do we have that?
We do. We received that on a grant probably 8 years ago. We received that device. We will put that in our capital improvement plan moving forward. It might be in there now, but yes, it will need to be upgraded at some point.
Anything else? Any other questions for?
Thank you.
Move on to the police. Chief Spees, is there anything you wanted to add to what we've got here already? As far as equipment you're in need of or any other items?
The ones that we shared with Bola, the UTV, it was similar to Ronnie's explanation as Brentwood Bound comes online. We could also use it in our existing patrols of our parks as well. Right now, we do have bike patrols in our parks, but this would really assist us being able to be more visible and respond quicker. So the UTV is on that list. Gym equipment's on the list that we gave Bola. We're limited in space and size in the police department for our gym, so this is really just a couple pieces of additional equipment that Angie's picked out. The wellness program's on there. One of the things that we had listed as well was the camera surveillance system. And at the board meeting the other night, I was thinking about that parking lot, the Brentwood Bound parking lot, that's probably going to be very busy. There's a lot of car break-ins that occur at these style lots when people get out to go to a park or walk or whatever they're going to do. So as we look at cameras being deployed to our parks and parking lot areas, that's part of that expansion that we were hoping for as we look at these camera systems for this expenditure. One that wasn't on the list, Bola, sorry to catch you off guard on this one if it does. We're looking to try and replace an area behind the police station where we had an area for the officers to be able to eat lunch. So it's a concrete pad and a gazebo style little thing. We have not bid that out. I don't know what that would cost, but that would be something that we could use as well. I don't think that's on the list though. So that's all I had though.
Questions for the chief? Chief, what about that camera system that I think it's called Fox or that Wentzville on their entries into their city? That's something that.
The LPR cameras, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, so we
permanently
deploy our LPR through the trailer that was purchased. There is an LPR camera on that. We use that at night a lot around Brentwood Forest, up and down Brentwood Boulevard. We deploy that into our retail areas frequently, almost daily. So we have an LPR capacity right now to use. Right now, right now it's just the trailer. There was some discussion, and Kathy, I think you remember in Brentwood Forest about actually them purchasing a camera system privately for Brentwood Forest. But that could be a consideration on the entrance, not only for Brentwood Forest, but your neighborhood as well. I mean, there are other areas to cover that we get hit frequently at night. So that could be a consideration as well, yes. They're not cheap, though. They're expensive. And the software behind them is the ongoing cost is expensive as well.
Just out of curiosity, following up on that, is a street as busy as Brentwood Boulevard is, for instance, with multiple lanes of traffic and things like that? Can that technology be deployed in some sort of a permanent way that you could reliably from under the overpass or something? I don't know, you know.
It can. It depends. Depends on what you're trying to do with it, honestly. If you're strictly trying to catch stolen cars and things like that. So the LPR can be.
Or at least be alerted to them when
Yeah,
stolen cars
they can
are
be. You can filter it down to whatever you want. But yes, you can deploy it in a permanent capacity. The city has a ton of them. Ton.
City of St. Louis.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
How, are they monitored on some other site, or can they be monitored from patrol cars?
That's one of the reasons why the city has so many cameras is they have a real-time crime center, which is a big monitoring center of video feeds from all over the city. So not only is it LPR cameras, but it's traffic cameras and everything else. So it's a big undertaking to be able to do that. We don't have the size or the capacity or really the need to do that style of active monitoring. So what our officers can do, though, is get active alerts from the LPR. So if it's 3 in the morning and a stolen car goes south on Brentwood from the highway, they'll immediately get an alert. So it is very valuable in that regard.
Can I ask? One reason Brentwood Forest didn't go ahead with this was the monitoring. You can have the camera there, but who's going to ever sit and look at it or play it back? Is there any way for something that would be private, be purchased on a private basis like that to be monitored anywhere else?
Well, one of the things that we were trying to do in York Village was we were trying to be interactive with a camera. It didn't work out, partly because of the placement of where it was. But we were having that feed go directly to the sergeant's phone, the cell phone that the city pays for. So that say at 4 o'clock in the morning, a car came into York Village, they could look at the video of the car's entry. So, I mean, our officers are in that in all our neighborhoods so much that they actually know, like, the paper route guy, and it becomes, seriously, I mean, there's a few people that run the streets at night that they know. If it's a car they don't know at 4 in the morning, then they could deploy to, yes, so yeah, you could do that.
Okay,
That's what we were trying to get to, it just did not work out.
thank you.
Dan, you want a second crack at this? I know you had some things on your list. How are you?
Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions on ours. It's pretty straightforward. Currently, if we want a message board, we either rent it or borrow it from another agency. So, for example, like the message boards on either side of Manchester for Brentwood Days, those came from either Rock Hill or Clayton. We borrowed those. And if we couldn't borrow from either city, we would just rent them. So we were kind of thinking there's a smaller unit that's solar powered, you know, battery and solar, and that was like 6,500 to 10,000. And then there's the big ones like you saw along Manchester, those are closer to 18,000 per trailer mounted unit. I was kind of thinking the smaller one because you could use it for police fire as well. Some of the other agencies were using it for COVID shots. You know, they would advertise COVID shots here or something. Anyone with a smartphone that has access, password protected, you know, they can update the messaging, things like that. I mean, and I thought, well, with the new Normwest or whatever we're calling it park, you know, you could possibly, if there's a special event for the amphitheater or food trucks, you could put that out by the roadway, you know, where the entrance is, you know, things of that nature. And then the other one that was less glamorous was just paying off the sewer lateral. You know, we still owe $230,000 roughly. So if we paid that off, then that money could be used to either build a reserve in that fund or some other appropriation. So.
My personal feeling is that these ought to be things that are eye-popping. People notice that we're doing that,
Right.
that citizens have asked for, and I just don't think they gravitate towards sewer lateral too much.
Right.
Dan?
Okay, thanks.
And Bo, the last thing on there was information technology. I know that's not in our purview, but what exactly is that? Because it says police, fire, and other
I
departments.
haven't heard back from IT, so I just put that as a catch-all. I think when we drill down, maybe we have something, and we'll bring it. If not, then it'll go away.
Timeframe as to when this needs to be.
We just know the deadline where we have to submit the final invoice. I believe that's 2026 is what I heard today. But I think clearly we should have spent most of the money, or at least know what we want to do before December 31st, 2024. I've submitted the application. They have our bank information and all the other necessary paperwork, so that sometime in July, when the funds are released, we will just see it in our bank account, all of it. But I think it's going to have to be separate. We would create a separate account, almost like a separate fund, so we don't commingle it with the rest, and that way we'll be able to report better how it's spent, because the reporting is a little detail, and they're going to be auditing that, and we'll have to submit documentation quarterly. So we want to make sure that it's easier for us to keep up with the reporting requirements.
Thank you. Moving on to, we have a couple of oaths of office.
Right, so we swore some new firefighters in on, well, we didn't swear them in, but they pinned their badge on it, so we forgot. So we're trying to play catch up today.
Okay.
You forgot the oath. Or the mayor forgot the oath. That's where we'll lay the blame.
Yeah.
I, Christopher Cosmas. I, Christopher Cosmas, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the ordinances of the city of Brentwood, that I will faithfully and diligently demean myself at all times while serving as a firefighter paramedic
Well, welcome again, Christopher.
Edward Burney,
I, Edward Byrne,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support
the ordinances of the city of Brentwood, that I will faithfully and diligently demean myself at all times fire chief
the Assistant Fire Chief,
appointed
for which I am officially
Finding it today, so it should have today's.
I guess I'll just ask, does it matter that it's the 23rd and they said the 24th?
We can correct that.
I,
It is the 24th tomorrow, right? It's 24th
today's the
today.
23rd,
I know.
tomorrow's the 24th.
So you're working for free, is that?
That's right. so
Yes.
all bets are off.
Is that all? Yeah, sorry, guys.
No salaries today, darn it. Okay.
All right. That's it. We'll move on to reports of committee chair and alderman. I'd just like to say, welcome, Ed. Assistant fire chief of probably the best department in St. Louis County, at least. And the citizens really revere their fire department here, as well as all their first responders. So, welcome. Good, thanks. And then I also like to thank Ronnie for giving us a tour of the new ambulance the other day. It's great that, we've got such a great group of guys, and we only want the best equipment for those guys, so they show up at whatever scene or whatever with the right tools and, show a professionalism, not just by their own training, but also the equipment we supply for our force. So thanks for that tour, Ronnie. Move on to Alderman Plufka. Any
Thank
report?
you. The only report I have is just to thank, I don't know that I've had an opportunity in this committee setting to thank Dan Gummersheimer for the odyssey that he's been on in terms of getting solar lighting to York Village or to York Hills. The end result is better than it looked on paper, I have to tell you. And everybody I've talked to in that neighborhood just really appreciates the replacement of that solar electric light from where they had gas lanterns, a decade ago. I just think, I think more than anything else, the two solar lights that are there are going to serve as a real viable option in a lot of areas of the city going forward. I think they're bright enough, and they're certainly aesthetically pleasing, really attractive. So anyway, thank you very much for all your diligent work.
Alderwoman O'Neill, welcome to Public Safety.
Thank you. The only report I have is to thank Dan for finishing the solar lighting there, because Brentwood Forest would like things to move on ours now that has been completed.
Alderwoman Sims.
No report, except I echo the sentiment of Alderman Lockmuller. I know York Hills and York Village will do just fine without my further comment. Welcome aboard those that were sworn in. And yes, thank you for the tour. Only regret I had is that you didn't let me drive the ambulance, but that was all. Thank you.
All right, move on to department reports. We'll start with police. Chief?
Thank you, sir. I got yelled at in the back of the room a few minutes ago. We have been very low on car-related break-ins in June. Mr. Bottini might be lying to us in the crime stats or something. I think we have 3 right now, which is as low as it's been since I've been here. So June's been a really good month, and we'll hope that continues. As far as the crime in June, there's only really a couple things of note. One was a nighttime robbery that came out down on Manchester at the storage facility. And the detectives have been looking at that case. It came out as a carjacking. We're not real sure exactly what happened yet. So if you saw that on your nightly, that wasn't what I would call a traditional nighttime carjacking. There's other details. The only other really thing of incident that I got a chuckle out of anyway was a losing pitcher walking out of the park after a baseball game, smacked the guy that got the triple and won the game in the face with his glove, bloodied his nose. Short of that, that's about the only crime other than retail theft we've had in June. So we're hoping this trend continues. Major McIntyre, can you come up for a second? As part of our report, Jim's going to give you a brief synopsis of where we are in our CALIA process for the police department.
Thank you, Chief. So as you may or may not know, our CALIA process is a 4-year process now. So we are currently now we're in year 3. We just completed year 2. Our CSM, or Client Service Member Review, was conducted by a CALIA assessor online, and they reviewed 1/4 of our policies. So that's why it's a 4-year thing. Every year they review 1/4 of our policies. Use of force, pursuits, basically the high risk, low frequency policies are the ones they review every year. The client service member took about a week to review all of those policies. He had a couple of questions regarding some of our wording on our policies. After we clarified that with him, he had no further questions. No issues came up. and he sent his report to Kalia. We can't say right now that it's 100% compliance, but we did not get any negative feedback from our CSM, our client service member. So we anticipate another 100% compliance report. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions while Jim's
sorry.
here? Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
The CALIA process is, it's arduous to get it and get certified, but this is an everyday thing. So we live with CALIA on a daily basis, and it's just part of our law enforcement life now. Major Hawkins wanted to give, real briefly, wanted to give you an update on something that Bola has given her blessing to, and
I have the benefit of coming up and sharing fun things, and poor Jim has to talk about Kalia, so I'm sorry. Sorry, Jim. We're excited to let you know that we have been approved to do a fundraiser, and it's going to be a softball tournament style fundraiser this year. It's scheduled for October 2nd. We did finally pin a date down, and it's basically going to be police versus fire. And it's a little friendly competition. Some of our staff from the fire and the police side have gotten together, and they're planning quite the event. So we're hoping to raise money at this event and donate it all to Backstoppers. Obviously, 2020 was a pretty low year for Backstoppers raising money for their typical Guns N' Hoses fight downtown, which they had to do a virtual fight, which was not nearly as fun. Nor as lucrative for them. So we're hopeful to have some food trucks and make it a family event and welcome the community to come out and cheer on the first responders and just have a lot of fun with it too. So just a heads up on that, and thank you so much, Bola, for being excited about it. We are too, and it should be a great time. So October 2nd?
October 2nd.
Yes, and at Brentwood Park.
Like afternoon, day. I'm just gonna put it on my calendar.
We're trying to figure that out right now. I think we're shooting for somewhere like 11 to 6, depending on how many teams end up joining us. So
Oh, so, okay, all day.
yes, so.
that's all we had, sir.
All right, thank you, Chief. I know we've got something coming up later in the agenda. All right, we'll move on to fire, Ronnie.
Right, I will try and be brief. I've been putting it in my weekly reports. We've had a lot of mechanical issues with our ambulance fleet. So currently, today, all of our ambulances are on property here in Brentwood, either at City Hall or at our fire station. A major repair, we had a total engine replacement on the 2012 Ford ambulance. Reason we just had to, it was beyond repair, it had to be replaced. We are keeping that ambulance as a reserve for at least the next 7 years. So going this route was a benefit to Brentwood. We have a full 2-year unlimited mile warranty on that new engine. So I just wanted to provide that update. All of our ambulances are back. They're in service and running calls. The 2004 ambulance will be going on GovDeals for sale, and just as soon as I can coordinate that with Kyle from Public Works. So in the next couple of weeks, we hope we'll get that surplus equipment for sale. The 2020 Ford ambulance that you toured the other night, we should have in service very soon. Again, we had equipment installed the last couple of days. It's back in the station, so we're moving quick on that now. And the police department's completing a hiring process, which is freeing up HR to start helping us with the hiring process. We currently do not have any openings. This is for an eligibility list that we maintain for a year at a time. In the event opening occurs, it just cuts down on that time frame to bring somebody on board. Right now, we have one person that's eligible to retire, and in less than a year, we have another person eligible to retire. So doing this list right now, it's going to be a benefit to us if they choose to retire in the next 12 months. And then the final project to highlight, IT's really spearheading this project, but it directly affects our building, and that's the security upgrades, building access, including security cameras. So they have an agreement with the vendors. I know all of the equipment has been ordered. They just have not scheduled installation, but it should be completed perhaps by our next meeting. So it is a big ticket item. It is part of capital improvement funds from the public safety tax. So that's where those funds are coming from. It's budgeted at $73,000. That's all I had, unless you had any questions.
Those questions? No.
Thank you.
All right, move on to Public Works, Dan.
Yeah, we had a couple different items to update you on. Included in your packet is the update on Rosalie, the traffic calming improvements. I don't know if all of you have gotten a chance to drive over it, but the speed cushion, it's the same brand, it's just slightly different configuration, and the color is different than the one over on Pine, but it's the same manufacturer. So this would be in the Rosalie block between Brentwood Boulevard and Mary. So we put that down. I've included some photos there so you can kind of see the staff putting the anchor sleeves and anchor bolts in the pavement rather. And then as part of MUTCD, they require or actually suggest that you put in a advance warning sign. So I gave you one picture of one of the two signs. So it says speed hump. There is no sign that actually says speed cushion, speed hump's good enough. And then the suggested speed, which is a supplementary sign that's 15 miles per hour. And then you can kind of see some of the challenges we faced after we put it in. Somebody parked over it, which isn't really good, since the fire truck needs to pass through those slots and would probably crush the side of that Mercedes. So it's challenging. I mean, what we could do, I guess, if these are successful, we want to keep them down more permanent, maybe we do concrete and then, change the code to require no parking in a certain area here, X number of feet on either side. But so far, so good. Now the challenge, which everyone's slowing down now since Spire's doing work out on that block of Rosalie. So I don't know if you have any questions about that one, but the rough cost was around $3,700 for the cushions. Then we had a few drill bits, the extra signs. I mean, you're looking at roughly $4,000. And that's about what we spent over on Pine. And then I know we'll be talking later on about some other requests. So that's Rosalie. Switching gears to the streetlight update. I know we already talked a little bit about York Village. So we have 2 of those solar lights in on York Hills Drive. Been trying to get a hold of the other folks that have private property that we're trying to get the easement signed off on. So there's 3 other locations. We just haven't received those yet. I'm hopeful that they'll still sign off on them. If not, they have utility somewhere else. I mean, we just need to pick somewhere else. I thought, maybe a park, oak tree or something. It doesn't require power. It just needs clear sky so that the solar collector will work. So, and we can adjust these too. If you would receive a complaint, there's a app that we have access to that we can actually adjust the intensity of the solar light or the timing. Right now, it's just on. The standard configuration is the dusk to dawn sensor. The little photoelectric guy kicks it on whenever it reaches dark levels, and then it'll turn it off whenever the light is sufficient enough. But you can adjust it, up or down. I think they're pretty cool. I mean, they look neat. It blends in with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And so far, once we got those wiring harnesses, they've been working every time I've gone out there. One thing, though, to add to this particular one on York Village, the trustees had asked if we could move. I know a photo included in there. There's 2 benches. Those were already there. We had to move one on one side just to get access, drill the auger, or use the auger to drill the foundation. Now that the lights are in, they'd like us to take those 2, like one in each island, and slide them over to North Code closer to where those plantings are. Along the MoDOT sound wall.
Oh.
So I didn't know if that is something you would want us to do. I mean, generally speaking, we don't move things. It wasn't part of the easement agreement or anything, so don't feel obligated, but.
Trustees asked you to do that?
Right. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. If you wanted us to do that, I don't want to just do things because people ask.
I would not be in favor of the city of Brentwood spending any money relocating benches from York Hills to anywhere, so. I mean, that's just my thought. I don't know if anybody else feels any different.
I agree.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean.
It's a slippery
Are there
slope,
so
right?
many runners in that area that they have to stop and rest there?
I don't have any idea where this is coming from. I'm just.
Yeah, I think they wanted it
I'm
more
as
as like a
surprised as anybody
reflecting area, like you would move 2 benches over by the trees, I guess, to look at the trees, or I don't know. I mean, right now they're back to where they were. if you don't want us to move it, we won't move it.
I don't think the city should spend any time or money on this at all, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll work. And then the only other, oh,
Further
go ahead.
question?
I have a question. I have two questions. So is the collector the entire pole?
No, that's a good question. The collector, I'd say, is about not quite a full 180 degrees, like wrapped on the vertical part of the post.
Okay.
It doesn't go all the way around. So when we oriented it, you try to push the collector more towards south-southwest because you
Sure.
get more light that direction.
And is the intensity of the light adjustable as well as when it turns on and off?
It is. So that's a good question too. If it's too intense, there's little LEDs up there, you can adjust the intensity and it'll dim the whole group down
Yeah.
to whatever you want it to
I've
be.
driven there a few times now, and I personally think nobody's complained to you, have they? Or
No, I actually went out with the light meter. I didn't put it in here, but I measured it. It was a little over 7 lumens, or 7 lux. Yeah, because it's lux. So a little
how
over
does that
7
compare
lux.
with a hardwired streetlight?
Yeah, I looked at the one over at Brentwood and Swan Circle, and that one's 21, and that's an AC powered Ameren Cobra head.
Okay.
So these are about a third of what you would see from AC. But to me, it's sufficient. I mean, when I
Oh,
walked around the
absolutely.
island, I can see from one side of the island to the other. and
Absolutely. Yep.
I think cars will be able to see it better too whenever they come up to that split.
No question about it.
And then
question.
regarding Brentwood Forest, it's not in here, but we've been talking to Ameren, but they've got the check. Their construction department has the work orders. They just need to find the time to go over there and put those lights in. I know they're busy with the Manchester Road relocations, but I don't know if it would be an Ameren crew actually doing it or BBC Electric or one of those subs that they're using. But I know today they were cutting parts of the utility poles down and removing transformers. So I know that relocation's a higher priority, but we still need to get these done because I know there's just construction ribbon and laths around the 5 locations. We're at least to the point where they could just come in and pop those in and energize them. So I'll ask again and see if we got a better update for the weekly report. That's it.
Might as well stick around because we're moving into old business and we got Harrison Avenue traffic calming.
Correct. I didn't know if you had specific questions about it, but what I tried to do is I created a table, which is it's one of those, it's a summary. So I originally looked at the data, put all the reports in here, kind of condensed it down. So going back to the background on why we were doing this, we had received an application. Some of the concerns would be vehicle speeds, volumes, cut-through traffic, things of that nature. So 2 data collectors were placed, one on High School, on the east side of High School, just north of Litzinger, and the other one in the 8900 block of Harrison, closer to Hill. So I gave you a little aerial view and dropped a little diamond on there to kind of show you where they were placed. Those were working simultaneously from May 4th through June 11th. And some of the things that we learned from using those, I know it was already mentioned earlier in the meeting, there's hardly any traffic on Harrison. Maybe it's changed since McGrath is now under construction, but prior to that, roughly 226, Friday 222, something.
Dan, I think you lost your mic and I know there's a citizen.
Okay, better. Going back into this table view, again, little over 200 cars for Harrison, so that's not much at all on an average day. Speed limit is 20 miles per hour for Harrison, 20 miles per hour for that section of High School. Looking at the 85th percentile, it means 85% of the cars are traveling that speed that's listed, so, or less. So 85% of the cars would be 27 miles per hour or less. They could be down as low as, say, 12, because that's the minimum speed. Maximum that we saw in Harrison was 49. So I can't remember which direction it was. I'd have to look at the more detailed report. And then 2330 high school, again, this would be high school just north of Litzinger. Max speed 72, min speed 12. The average is 25.8. So yeah, there's a high and a low. When you look at all the cars, it's about 25.8. It's lower for Harrison at 22.4. The total number of cars that went through during this May 24th through June 11th period, not quite 3,800 cars for Harrison, but significantly more on high school, 26,815. So for high school, you're averaging around 1,600 cars per day, Monday through Friday. It's actually 1,622. And then your ADT Sunday, Saturday, 1,577. So that kind of tells me that there's cut-through traffic there because there's more cars Monday through Friday, and then they drop off on the weekend. And again, due to COVID, these numbers could be slightly suppressed and lower. We don't have a baseline before that, but this is the baseline that we tried to generate. And then just comparing Friday to Friday, I put like over speed threshold. So for Harrison, number of vehicles was just 20 vehicles that were doing 10 miles per hour over the speed limit on that Friday. So they could be doing 30, 31, 32. Putting in perspective, it's 3.7% would be the number of violators of that group. A lot more for high school. So you have 499 vehicles on just that Friday. So that 24-hour period Friday, 13.7%. So it's a much higher percentage as well. The average speed of those violators is about the same, 32.4 versus 32.6. So that's, I tried to lay that out just so you can kind of see apples to apples for each of those locations, what's happening. And then more or less in the report, saying the same thing. And then, you know, the collected data confirms that it doesn't seem that there's significant concerns along Harrison, whether it's speed, volume, cut through traffic. You know, we can run it, you know, a series of data collection during construction or after. I was thinking after, just because now you're going to see as cars exit onto high school, what's that number? One of the things I thought it wasn't really covered in Rosalie, but we have that flashing speed limit sign and we need a home for it. So I thought, well, we could put it on high school, like just south of Stratford, so that southbound traffic would see their speed before they get to the school and the stop sign.
So given, looking at high school, given the volume and given the percentage, it looks like 85% are traveling at 30 plus miles an hour on average or less, where the speed
Correct.
limit is 20 miles an hour.
Right.
Does this collection of data give you any guidance as to what types of calming devices might be more effective with this pattern of behavior than others?
Yeah, with that speed, I mean, again, it would probably be either like you would restrict the lane width, you know, create like a choker, or you would put in another speed cushion, something, a physical impediment to slow you down. Because I think part of the reason, I did look at the data, like you can graph the different shapes, and it looks like southbound is a little quicker, you know, people coming down that hill towards the intersection there at Litzinger and high school.
Seems like the variety of speed is really dramatic too. I mean, you think you clock somebody at 70 miles an hour at one point?
Yeah, because it's a Doppler radar, so I mean, it just sends a pulse, it pings off your car or truck, sends it back, so it knows how quickly it came back and forth, and then it does its little calculation, and you can drill down to the actual point, and it'll tell you to the second whether it was north or south and day of the week. It, of course, doesn't have a camera, so I don't know what the vehicle looked like, you know, because I always thought, well, what if it's first responders or something? I don't think they would do 72, but, I mean, if you're going to a call, you're going to be going more than 20.
Yeah.
So that could be something that throws it off, or it could just be somebody just blowing through a stop sign and moving through there.
Okay. I just was curious if whether or not the data you collected kind of pointed you in one direction or another in terms of what you might do to try to calm this a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I thought we would run another series of collections for just high school. Harrison, you know, unless something changes dramatically after the school opens back up, but that'll be quite some time. You know, high school, we could certainly take a look at doing something in the interim, like I thought maybe we'd move that sign over there. So yeah, I don't know if you have any other specific questions. I mean, there's all kinds of reports, but.
Well, I think at least on Harrison, we got a baseline to work with now.
Correct.
For whenever they finally finish the schools over there.
Yeah, and I thought, well, once they're finished, well, what if that ADT goes up significantly? I mean, the street will handle 1,000, 2,000 cars per day. You know, as a resident, you wouldn't want that per se, but civil engineering wise, it's fine. It's not going to deteriorate the pavement or anything like that.
And then when they get heavy into construction on high school, I mean, it ought to slow things down, I would think.
I would
until
think
we get
so,
done with
because you're
that.
going to have trucks entering and exiting that entrance, I know. Yeah, this was more for informational purposes. You know, there's no action necessary.
Can I?
Kathy?
A couple of things. The fact that construction trucks are going down Harrison is a bit disturbing. With the parked cars on that street, if I use it, I wouldn't want to face construction. Can we put a sign that says no construction trucks there so that the high school workers won't enter Harrison?
I was just going to call them tomorrow and just explain it to Navigate in the school that you can't go down the side street, that you're going to have to probably go Litzinger. You know, that's a much wider, safer route. And you've got a controlled point of entrance and exit with the traffic light coming off Brentwood Boulevard. You know, I would think that's.
And my follow-up for that is, we also don't want to see them coming down high school. We already have issues, as it shows here, with people using high school as a cut-through, and they get to Brentwood Forest and they just tear down that hill. So if we can shuttle them onto Litzinger and then do some other studies with high school closer to us, that would really be appreciated.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'll have to talk to Navigate, because I'm not sure if the construction documents, if they have stipulations in there to tell them. Like, I know with MSD and Project Clear, there were very specific streets that you could use down by Brentwood Park. You know, you were to come down Bremerton. You're not supposed to come down Hilldale or whatever street's convenient for you. You were very specific. So if it's not in there, we can certainly ask them to make them aware that we don't want them coming down side
Thank you,
streets.
that would help.
Well, I think it was kind of discussed during when they wanted the curb cut, that there was going to be some communication with the contractors that they were coming in off of Litzinger and not cutting through some of our side streets.
Right.
I think that was put into the ordinance or anything like that, but we asked, I think.
Right, yeah, I can just ask them tomorrow and find out, see what it says, and if it doesn't, then make them aware of what we'd like to see.
I guess if that doesn't work, communicating that way, then Kathy's suggestion on signs, do we have those type of signs that we could temporarily?
We don't, but you could certainly purchase those, you know, as long as it's not something so unique. It would just say, you know, local traffic only, no construction.
No, there was, when Evo Apartments were being built, Oriole had a sign that said no construction traffic. So wherever that sign went, that's really, it was like a sandwich sign, and it was very visible.
That's what I'm thinking, it was probably the contractors, but I know we have signs made up all the time, you know.
It
Like-
worked.
I'll check to see if we did have any in inventory, but if we don't, you know, signs are fairly inexpensive. But I would actually put the onus back on the contractor since it's his project.
Right.
So,
I agree.
okay.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Moving on to new business, we have a possible grant through UMSL, and I guess this is the chief, fire chief, or police chief, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. We have an opportunity to participate in a grant that UMSL's preparing, so we are not the agency that's going to be writing and submitting the grant to the federal government. We would simply be kind of a guinea pig for UMSL to use our officers to create the technology. It's a training device. It's a virtual training device. So we would, and this would be outside of their work hours. It's all on overtime. The officers would be responsible to come and go through a training event, make suggestions and improvements in the software, and then help create new training, scenarios for the software. Again, all of this is outside the scope of their regular duty hours. Any administrative duties would also be included in the grant in terms of payment. So there is no cost to the city. All of that all of those payments will be submitted to UMSL, who's, as the administrator of the grant, would reimburse the city for any overtime spent. So there is no cost to it as well. It's a 2-year project for UMSL, and at this point, Brentwood and potentially one other city would be involved in it.
Saying it's a virtual reality type training?
Yeah. So think of it as kind of a headset, and software writers create, whether it's a hold-up, a family disturbance call, whatever it may be. They actually have actors, and then the officers go through the virtual training, and they have to make decisions on what to do. So, and our training coordinator, Chris Gibson, Sergeant Gibson, would be our coordinator of the project, and Chris would facilitate the entire project for us.
Make a motion?
Oftentimes, there's a resolution that the board would approve to go with some of these grant requests. I think there is an overtime cost, but it will be reimbursed by the
All
grant.
reimbursed, yes. That-
Yeah.
I would make a motion that the full Board of Aldermen consider a resolution allowing for our police department to participate in the UMSL grant request for virtual training.
Second.
Is that enough? Okay, yeah.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sounds exciting. Can we watch? Can we watch it? Yeah, when it-
Is it like a headset that goes on here? So I'm getting sort of a Judge Dredd vibe. Like what? I mean, so okay.
Wow.
So it's a gaming thing. Got it. Okay. Great.
All right, we've got another traffic calming request. I think you're just making us aware of, Dan? And Eulalie?
Yes, this one's more for informational purposes. So as we get these, we're trying to make you aware of what's going on. This one, we don't have the number of signatures yet since it's supposed to be 2/3, but it's getting really close. So it's just inevitable that, she'll get these other signatures. This is, for those following along at home, it's Eulalie Avenue, and it's between Helen and Dorothy. So it's 8600 block there. The person who submitted it would like to see something done about speeds, as well as not stopping at the stop sign. So I don't know if she's implying the stop sign at Dorothy or the one at Helen or both, but I'll have to ask for clarification. But I can't do anything about the stop sign. I mean, either you stop or you don't. But as far as the speeds, we can certainly, whenever we get the collectors back, take a look at what the speeds are there. I've driven through there before, and I don't really see how you can speed because there's cars parked on both sides most of the day, and it's narrow enough that, I guess it's just I'm more conservative when I drive. I don't want to go fast when I see cars on both sides, and especially if someone's coming the opposite direction. But we can certainly take a look at this one and bring data back at the next meeting, since I know she's due to give me the other 4 or 5 signatures, and we'll meet the 2/3 then. I don't know if you've had issues from your ward meetings with this particular area, or?
I've never received a complaint. I don't know if Alderman has. But so no one's called me about.
Yeah, this is the first I'd heard in this block. Usually it's Pine, which makes sense. It's a through street, McKnight to Brentwood Boulevard. And then I've had White, but no one submitted anything on White. Not yet, at least.
Look at that picture of the one on Rosalie and where it was placed. Who suggests where that gets placed?
I measured it so that it would be almost mid-block, but I wanted it upstream enough that you could see it as you are going westbound. I didn't want it to get lost, and that's why I actually picked the yellow too. And I wanted it kind of where it is, so as you're going over the hill, it's forcing you to slow down when you get to the stop sign if you're going eastbound, because it's Broughton Park there. So I want, at the very least, you're going to have to hit the brakes to go over it, and you're not just going to fly through the stop sign at 50 miles per hour.
Well, I mean, if you look at that picture, I don't know where the how the fire truck gets over that properly. So that means we need to be somehow eliminating a parking space in front of somebody's house.
Correct, yeah.
So-
And right now, you'd have to change the ordinance to read that there's no parking and then be specific, like call out the addresses or the number of feet on either side of an address.
And, you know, the person that lives there may not be too happy with that fact.
Yeah, and I think the reason why they were still parking there is because you can't park on the north side of Rosalie. That's prohibited by code. So if you live on the north side and have more than, say, 1 or 2 vehicles, they typically park on the south side.
I just see a problem coming our way.
Yeah, I thought it would be logical that you wouldn't park on it, but I know that when I talked to some of the people in that area, they said that the people that parked the car there are actually moving, so maybe it'll correct itself without much effort.
All right,
That's it.
and got a cooperative training, fire training agreement coming our way. Ronnie?
Yes, so this is our agreement with the cities of Clayton, Maplewood, and now Richmond Heights. So very excited to renew this contract, bring Richmond Heights on board. There's a lot of energy with that. Richmond Heights is slated for their next council meeting to approve as an ordinance this contract. Believe they will be the first municipality to approve this contract. It goes into effect once the first 3 cities sign the agreement. We do have them on the training schedule for the month of July. So we're hoping to get approval of this agreement, move it to July 19th meeting, and approval from the full board.
Questions for Ronnie? Bull, has Kevin looked this over, or is this a rehash of the old one?
There's some changes to it.
Correct.
But the Richmond Heights City Attorney has reviewed it, and he's with the same firm as Kevin, so we're going to be comfortable with it.
There is no cost increase for Brentwood to continue this agreement.
Ready then by our next board meeting?
Should be.
Yes.
On to the full board.
So move.
Second.
Favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Move on to citizen comment.
Karen has her hand raised, but I don't know if it's from the last time or. Karen, do you
Sorry,
have
that's
something?
from the last time.
Okay,
I'm changing it.
okay.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.